I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, so we're going to make a start then. Yeah, thank you very much. My name is James Eaglesfield. I'm one of the account handlers at Bluestorm. We've been working on your new website. I've come in relatively late on the day, mainly to do the final bits of checking, that side of things. But I am one of our content editors as well. So I understand the way the CMS, the content management system that your website is built on. I understand the way it works, what you can and can't do with it. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to work on the assumption that many of you might never have worked on this kind of thing before. So I apologize for those of you who have. Some of this might seem a little bit basic, but I'd rather go through stage by stage. So I'm going to give you an introduction on how the system works, what areas you can change, how you can add things, remove pages, add content, edit content, and that side of things. We might get on to a little bit about the basics of good as well. What I would say is that if you want to ask me questions, I'm happy for questions as we go along, but do keep it relevant to the section we're in. If we start going off at tangents, we're going to get lost, but there will be opportunity to ask me more questions, get me to go back on stuff. So if everyone's happy with that, we'll get going. So when you log in, it would help probably if I shared my screen with you. Let's do that. Hopefully now you should see what's on my screen. Yeah, can't shake your head. Everyone seems to be okay. Good, so you can see what I'm seeing then. And I've given it a slightly larger mouse pointer so you can see what I'm clicking on at any given point. So when you log into the start on the dashboard, this is very little on this page. This page can contain details like the contact stats, news feeds, ones. If you want to play around with it, you can change it up here. I'm not going to go through that because it's a page I spend very little time on. What we're going to be covering in here are the things down the left-hand side here. So the entries, their pages, that's the main thing we're going to look at today. We will briefly talk about what's in globals, categories, assets, and freeform pro, but all incidental stuff. It's predominantly the entries we're going to be talking about today. So if I go into entries and into pages, you'll see down the left-hand side, I've got various different kinds of entries. Pages is fairly self-explanatory, it's your main pages. Information is the stuff that sits at the bottom, things that are in the footer. So your accessibility, terms and conditions, privacy policy, sitemap. News is your news section, fairly self-explanatory again. Events, all your events listing. At the moment, we've got nothing on there. They look like they're disabled to me. Bios and testimonials we don't really use on this site, so I'm not worried about them. And then singles is just a search tool. So the main ones you're going to be using are pages and possibly events. So starting with this, these are all the top level navigation, the top level pages. Now what I mean about that is they're all the pages that appear right at the top when you go onto your website. I'm using St. Thomas More's website today, but this applies to all of them. They're following exactly the same system and layout. So the top level nav is found in here at the moment. And underneath any of those, if I click on an arrow, I can see all the pages that sit below it. So in the case of About Us, I click on About Us. That's all those pages that sit down that side. So from here, I can see all the pages in the website. And I can either hide them or see them by clicking on the arrow just to make it tidier. What you can also do from this page, before we get actually into the pages themselves, is you'll see there's little arrows, little dots to the left of them. That allows me to move them around. This order here is the order it appears on the website. So this order here is defined by this list. So if I wanted governance to be right at the top, I've moved that. It's automatically updated. The governance is now sitting there. Before I get told off. So yeah, it saves the position, so you can move it around. So if anything, anytime you think it's not in the right place, then just move it around in here. Same goes with the top level navs as well. If our faith is more important than about us, then you'd move that up there. Make sure I pop it back to the right place. Yep, fine. So that's how the overall structure of the site looks. If I click into one of the pages, this is the home page. The home page follows some of the similarities to the other kinds of pages, but it is its own special type. You'll see over here on the right hand side, it tells me if I click on the arrow next to it, I can choose different types. So realistically in here, you've got a normal page, and you've got a home page. So the majority of the ones we come on to in a bit will be pages. The home page just has a slightly different layout, which is controlled by the template. You don't need to worry about that. So in all pages, you'll have a title bar that will be represented by the text that's at the top there. And then an introduction. Introduction tends to be slightly heavier text in terms of its size than everything else. So you normally make it a sentence or two. In this case, we've gone for 2 paragraphs. And then there's an image underneath it, which is there. And then in here, you've got navigation. That controls the elements that go in this line here. Once it's there, literally just click on an entry. It'll show you all the pages in the website. Either scroll down and choose the one you want, or you can do a search. So if I wanted to add newsletters to it, then I'll just add that in there. Going back to the top of the page, you'll see I've got a save option. If I click on save, that will then save.
James, I think our page is frozen at the minute.
What can you see at the moment?
I'm still on the details tab of the home page. So whatever you went to after that in terms of navigation, it froze at that point.
Temporarily turn off sharing and switch it back on. I love technology.
Mm-hmm.
What can you see now? Can you see the screen now?
Nothing as yet.
How about now?
No, I've still just got your initials. No, that's it. That's the CMS again.
Yeah, got it now.
So back into home page and the details overview page.
Okay, so we've got the title, which is there on the top of the home page. The introduction, which is a slightly larger text. You can put normal text in there as well, but the introduction is set to be a certain level. You set the image there as well, and then the navigation. That is literally just for this section here. So all I did was clicked on add an entry, chose from this list. You can search if you want, or you can just scroll down. Double clicking that will add it into here. And if I save that, it would then add it into that list there. Obviously, if I want to remove them, it's literally a case of clicking the button next to them. With save, you've got a couple of options. Clicking on save will just return me to the structure of the website, take me off this page. If it is, I want to save what I've done but keep on working, then there is an option in there which is save and continue in editing. If you're trying to duplicate a page, you open up a page that you've already got and then save it as a new entry. That will then duplicate that page. So you don't have to start from scratch if you've got a page that's very similar to start with. You then go and edit that as you would do the page you're creating. But the main ones you're probably going to use is just clicking on save or save and continue editing. So that's all that's there. At the moment, we're not using banners on this page, so don't worry about that. Content, there's very little on here at the moment, but I will come into it because it does affect it. It's the kind of stuff you can add to pages. So at the moment, the only thing we're doing in the main content is adding the news block. So this block underneath the picture is optional. If I was to delete that, or disable it or delete it, that news block would disappear. Equally, I can add more blocks either above it or below it. If I want to add a block above it, and this applies to all pages, click on that and I get all my options about what I can add above. If I want to add it below it, it's just there. So there's various different kinds of content that you can add. A standard text block, fairly straightforward and self-explanatory, which you can highlight and add links to if you want. Linking to an entry just means it's linking to a page on the website. So again, you'd be given a set of options and you can choose which page you want to link to. So you don't have to find out its address, you just click on that and that would send that link up. And link that. Or if you want it to go maybe to an external site and you know the address, you just put the website address there. If it's going to an external site, I'd suggest that you open it in a new tab so that the school's website isn't switched off. It's still there. They've opened whatever website you're going to in the new one. Then you can change your text there. So, you know what that is as well. So that would link to a website. But obviously, you've got your normal text in there. And as per usual, you can make it italic, underline, have it bulleted list. So a lot of your editing options are in there as normal. So that's the options underneath it are the alignment of the text box itself, not the text. So this box is set to span the width of a page. That would put a box on the left. That would keep the box in the middle. And obviously that would keep the box on the right. So if I wanted two text boxes, one on the left and then one to the right of it, so two columns, I set one box up like that, and then following it, a separate text box that's right aligned. So therefore I have two text boxes next to each other. So that's text. A lot of this I'm probably going to fly through a little bit. You can ask me questions as we go along. Some of it I would suggest that you get a dummy page or you go in, maybe don't save it as you go in, but have a play around, click on things. It's the best way to learn. Image does what it sort of says on the tin. It adds an image. Again, you've got options in terms of how that image is displayed. Now, fundamentally, there's only really two choices. You can either have an image that's half the page width or all the page width. If you want to do anything smaller and cleverer than that, you have to find other ways around it. So this one sets it to the left with text to the right or underneath, into the middle, to the right, or spanning the width of the block. And it's simply a case of going into there, choosing an image that maybe you've got already, or if you want to upload a new file from there, you can do as well. So that's an image. With any of these, if it's easier for you not to see all the boxes open, then you can collapse them and hide the content. So you can still see it there, but you can't see everything in it. Unlike with the home, the other page, when I was saying you can move things around, again, you've got the dots here, so you can move content around as well. So if I wanted the text above the image, I just drag it above it. Aside from that, you've got a few other options in there. Table, again, probably self-explanatory. I won't go into that too much. Files, you will use. That's when you want to have something like a PDF download, that kind of thing. Literally a case of adding your file. You'll see here that there's two options, images and files. To be fair, there's nothing stopping you uploading a file, an image into the file section or vice versa. In fact, if I go down here, I'm pretty sure, yeah, I've got documents in the image sections. So, but my suggestion would be you upload them to the right place just to make it easier for yourselves. So it would be a case of just select the files I want. If I want to do more than one, fine, I can select multiple files from there as well. And that's set them all up. And again, they'll come in that order. Unfortunately, with this, for some reason, I can't drag these around. So if you change your mind about the order, you need to then close them down, then reattach them in the correct order. A bit of a pain in the neck, but unfortunately, that's the way it is with the system. Beyond that, I would say that a gallery is useful. I talked about different ways of putting images in. One way to have a couple of smaller images would be to add them next to each other in a gallery. A slider just means they'll be in a row and they can spin around. a grid, we'll just put them into blocks. So it could be a 3x2 grid, for instance, 6x4, whatever. All you do, again, go into the same Finder tool. This will only open up the images section. And again, oops, if I press the right button, it'll help. I can add multiple images at the same time. I don't have to do it one at a time. So that would put that in there. Beyond that, I think, I guess I should probably explain accordions. Accordions, you've probably seen accordions. They're often used on FAQ pages. You'll see it when there's like a question given, but then the answer isn't, you can't see the answer. You have to click on something and it opens it up. That's an accordion. So you can add rows into here. So you give it the heading, the text, and then the heading will be visible to everybody all the time, but they'll only see the body, the main bit of content, when they click open. So that's quite a good way of getting lots of content onto a page without it making it look really busy and making it difficult to read. I say it's very good for FAQs because people want to don't want to necessarily have to read every single answer just to find the question they want. So it's quite good for that purpose. Beyond that, video, again, straightforward. All it needs in there is a URL. The website itself doesn't store any videos. So if you want to put a video on, then you're going to need to upload it to somewhere like YouTube or Vimeo. Once you've done that, get the URL from there, the address from there, copy it into there, add a little picture that you want to sort of represent the video, and pop a title in. And then that will pull the video onto the page. If you took it down from wherever you're getting it from, if you decide to delete it off of YouTube, then it'll be deleted off of here. The video still lives wherever you're getting it from. So that's the different kinds of content. I say there's a few others, but I think majority of them are relatively self-explanatory, or you may not use them. Related pages I quite like. Anytime I'm designing a page, one of the questions I always ask is, okay, what do we want to do? What do we want them to do next? Okay, they've read all the information on the page. Is that the end? Is that the point when they're going to disappear off the website? Probably not. You might want to steer them in the direction of other pages that might be of interest. So it might be advisable to put a related pages at the bottom. And again, it's just a case of selecting pages that already exist, and that'll put an entry at the bottom showing those pages as places they might want to go to next. It's helping them find their way around. The problem with websites is we might know where everything is, but the user won't, and they're almost spoiled for choice. So sometimes you have to signpost them, and using something like it helps them understand where they might want to go next. That's you just helping them understand and get the information they want. I appreciate I'm moving relatively fast. Does anybody want me to cover more on that, or are we all happy where we are at the moment?
I was just going to add, you know, when you had the files and you said you couldn't reorder them, can't you just drag the files into alphabetical order, James? I think I've been able to do that. It hasn't got the 4 dots, but I think you literally just click on the file and it goes up and down.
Maybe it hasn't for me before. If it has for you, then happy days. I'll check. Maybe there's an update I'm not aware of, but
I think I've done it with the policies to alphabetize them, because obviously I input them and the latest one will drop to the bottom of the box.
Yeah, so there we go. I was talking rubbish, probably not the first time on last time today. But yeah, so yeah, it doesn't show the option, but you're completely correct. You can do that.
There are a couple of people with their hands up as well.
Yeah, I just wondered, James, could I ask the top level menu options? Is it possible to change the names of those?
Yeah. So go back into entries, obviously discard everything that I've just been doing on that page. So all pages, so the About Us, we're on that About Us page anyway. So the name of the nav at the top is the same as the title there.
All right, okay. And also, is it possible to swap where you have a high level menu option that has clearly a drop down list of lower level pages? Can you swap those lower level pages to different high level menu options across the top? Is there an easy way to just swap the order or the location of them?
Yeah, I'll switch this into a normal page because it doesn't apply to our home pages, but if I'll go into one of those, doesn't matter which one. So you'll see straight away this entry type is page rather than home page, so it's got a few more options in it, and I'll cover those. But to answer your questions first, here this one's got a parent page attached to it. So this page, school mission statement, fits underneath About Us. If I was to press the minus button and save that, that would now become a top level nav. It's not got a parent attached to it. If I, however, want to move it like you suggested, I just go in and choose a different page that I want it to attach to. So it was attached to About Us before. I could make it so it's, so that would now sit underneath Our Faith.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the other things that had happened with I think it was Ensley in particular, while we were talking about their pupil leadership roles, they called them different things. So now, I mean, I've been doing it for them, but they just wanted to slightly reword the titles of pages, so they were able to do that within here using the page titles. Yeah.
The only thing to remember is anything that you put in there is going to be seen on the page and on the navigation as well.
Yeah.
Because if I click on primary school, the word primary school theoretically, yeah, appears there at the top as well. So it has to be something that's suitable for both. But yeah, if you want to change it into it, you literally just go into the page, change its title. That will change what appears in the navigation as well.
Would it be a sensible time to just ask what we can't change? For example, I know on our front page at the moment, it currently says tweets by St. Anthony's. I don't know if that's fixed text that we don't have access to.
Honestly, what it's pulling up.
Looks like it.
It's been resolved.
Yeah.
It might be you've got an old link.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is the live link. Whether you were looking at maybe the development link before, there's various things we won't have changed. Well, we can't change until it goes live. So what I'm looking at and what you're looking at the moment with me is actually the live website.
Okay. So are there things that we can't change?
There will be. There's various things that are created by the layout, the template, for instance, the footer. That isn't within your control. The overall layout isn't to a point in as much as that's where the title's going to be and that's where the intro is going to be. Beyond that, you've got a relative flexibility.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
So if we talk about, so I've talked about the home page so far, but the kind of page type you're mainly going to be looking at is a standard page, which is what this is set at. So we've got a few more things in here. Introduction's a lot smaller. Let's go to the page so I can have a look at it. It's not in there, is it? Or is it? Doesn't matter. No, it matters. Always good if we can compare the page I'm looking at the same time. So you can see that that's the intro section. It's larger than text-wise, and then all the rest of the content. So that comes in first. We're not using thumb images. Thumb images is if you've got a page in the same way as the About Us page has got the links all down the right-hand side of its child pages. The alternative way of laying that out would have been to put pictures of all those child pages. The pictures would have been what would have been set by this thumb image. But as I say, we're not doing it. Similarly, listing button text isn't used, neither is banner, so you don't need to worry about these three. So once you've done the title and the introduction, again, you go into content. And again, it's the same principle. You build it using blocks. So we've got a text block here to start with, followed by an image block. So there's your text block, image block. So quite a simple page in this kind of set. Obviously, you could split the text block into more than one. Put an image in the middle of it, for instance, halfway through, maybe between those two. The thing I probably should point out here, because it's probably the thing you might struggle with, is you'll notice that actually there's no ways for me to change the size of the text here. Actually, I can do it through this. It's all within formatting. So if you want a slightly larger header or a smaller one, you go into that and it's changed it. The problem with any of that is you'll notice that actually I tried to just change that and it actually changed that as well. If you're feeling very brave, you press this button and that shows you all the coding behind it. So for me, if I just wanted to change the heading there, that's what that is there. It says H2 there to there. Literally, I just changed that text. if I wanted to change that around without deleting anything by mistake, which I seem to have done anyway. But I wouldn't worry about that. That's just if things start going wrong, you can always look in there and check. But I say that's coding, so maybe a little bit more than where you want to go. So you literally just build up your page using blocks, and you've got the same blocks here as we had on the home page. The other tabs, listing, again, don't worry about it. It's not really being used. SEO is search engine optimization. It's the stuff that we do to keep Google and co happy. You can play around with this if you want, but there are settings that come in automatically anyway. So at this stage, I'd probably say you don't need to. Basically in here, it's what we do to describe the page for Google. It's what you'll see in Google search results, but it's all set to pull content automatically from the website, so you don't need to worry about it. In options, this is where you can choose to whether you want the page showing in the navigation. It could be that you've decided to create a landing page for a Facebook campaign that you don't want everybody on the website to see, but it's just a special link for people who clicked on that Facebook post to go to. In that case, I'd probably hide it from the navigation. No one else can see it, but if someone's got the link, they can go to it. Sidebar is just whether it shows having not all the extra child pages or the other things available down the right-hand side or not. Again, on a normal page, you wouldn't do that. On something like the About page, that's selected to show all the other pages to go with it. And then showing sitemap, don't worry about that neither. Again, that's us telling Google what pages there are in the website. Majority of pages on the website you're going to want Google to know about. If for some reason we did create a secret page we'd wanted no one to know about, we'd hide it by doing that. But in majority of cases, you're probably not going to touch that. Other things down the right hand side here, as well as the entry type, the slug, that's the end part of the URL. Normally, again, you won't have to worry about it. It's when you're creating a page, it's pulled from there. However, if you want to change it to use different words, then you can just go into it and edit it. Especially if you've maybe changed the title and you want the slug to be reflective of that, then you might need to go in there and edit it, or you spot the spelling mistake in there. If you change the spelling mistake in there once you've saved it, then you need to go into there and change it too. Then you've got down here, post date and expiry date, useful for scheduling. So if you've got a post that it wants to go live on Christmas Day, but you don't fancy sitting around on the website to send it live on Christmas Day, then just set the post date to Christmas Day. And then that'll sit in the background, so you don't need to do anything. Come the right date and time, it'll go live by itself. And conversely, expiry date, you've got an offer on for some reason, you're a school, why you should have an offer, I have no idea. But if you've got an offer on and it expires on Christmas Day, again, you can put an expiry date on there so it disappears after that date without you having to worry about it. Equally, you can enable and disable the page. So that means if you haven't just deleted it, it still exists in the back end, you can see it, but it's not enabled for people to see it, so it'll disappear from the actual website itself. Literally just click that and choose save. Is there anything else of that anybody needs to go through?
I think just showing, have you shown them the live preview? I find it really helpful as a checking point.
That point, yeah. So as you're playing around with things, this one here will open the page itself. So that's the live page. So you can see that. But as Naomi mentioned, the live preview is probably one of the more useful tools. So it splits my screen. And this is now the page as I'm editing it. So if I was to lose that, and give it a little bit of time to catch up, that's now disappeared from my page on the right hand side. It hasn't disappeared from the main website until I hit save. So that's just you able to play around with it, see how things are going to work before you actually truly commit to it. Then obviously you can save it from there, but that will save it, send it live straight away, or obviously go back to your main editor and keep on working on it. The other choices you've got up here as well is save as draft. I should have mentioned that as well. Once you've first created a page, again, you might not want it to go live or be seen by anybody. So at that stage, just save it as a draft. Any other queries?
I think the other thing was, you know, the title sizes. I found using that with the live preview. So where you want to insert normal text, I don't know what the icon is. It's the second one in just above mission statement. But you know, if you want to, can you see on the CMS page of the body text?
Yeah.
Yeah, that little funny icon. I don't know what it's called. Just above your text in your toolbar there, left of the bold icon.
That one, yeah.
That one, yeah. I think I think anybody starting to put up a page will have to have a play around with that, because the title sizes can be huge sometimes. I've probably stuck to two favourites, normal and heading 4.
I should also point out there's a different, there's another part of their usage as well. From a Google point of view, a heading 1 is more important than a heading 2, and it can see that. So you'd format things appropriately. If this was the most important word on your page, then it should have probably a better heading rating, as it were, than this. Similarly, if you put things in italics or bold, that is seen as being more important as well. So again, it's about thinking about what the important things are on the page, which is also about user experience. There's a reason you're putting something in bold or larger. It's because you want users to be able to see it and have their attention brought to it. It actually also is telling Google and the other search engines what's important about that page as well. So I wouldn't use a heading on something that wasn't really important. And again, think about the words that you use in a heading for that reason.
Thank you.
Beyond that, say it's probably a lot of this I find a lot easier if when you're playing around with it. It makes less sense when someone's just talking about it to you. If you want to get more space in there, you can click on this icon here to take it full screen and back again. Obviously, you can delete the page if you want to as well. But I personally, unless you definitely know you're never going to get it again, I'd disable it rather than delete it, just because you never know. Someone might go, oh, you know that page you did a year ago, can we have something similar again? So often would keep that in there.
And when you see the main menu, it shows, doesn't it, just like ghosted out? Yeah.
So let's do it very, very, and I'm just really, I've changed something else on there, so I don't want to, if I temporarily disable that then, but not change anything else, I'll disable that, save. This will now send me back to the main structure. So you'll see now I've got an empty circle next to it, rather than the one that's enabled, which is green. So I'll put that one back on before I get told off. So there's a couple of ways of starting a new page. As I say, one option would be to go into an existing page that you want to copy, go into that and then save it from the top option as a new entry. You can add a child, which will add a page underneath whichever one you're clicking on. So if I wanted a child page to appear under About Us, I'd click there. A child page can have another child page. So About Us is the parent page here. Pupil leadership lives underneath that. And then underneath pupil leadership, there's even more pages. Majority of times I wouldn't go too many child pages. It adds an extra layer of complexity even.
I know, I think I stick to try and no more than 2 clicks if possible.
Yeah, the more clicks it takes for someone to get somewhere, the worse the website is. The experience isn't there, you lose people very quickly. So you can add child, which will add one underneath there. Or if I click on new entry, I can choose what kind of type I want. But most chances are it'll be just click on new entry. That gives me a fresh page when it gets there, which I can double check as a page type. And then I can start afresh from there. If I want it to go underneath the page, as we've discussed before, I just select what its parent page is from there, and that will then sit under, in this case, About Us. So that's all blank for me to play with now.
James, can I just ask that within a page, it looks as though the style of the websites is such that pictures follow text blocks. When you're creating a page, do the blocks therefore have to follow each other, down the page, or can you set them alongside each other?
If you want to do that, I'd be using. Let's go and dive in.
For example, if you wanted a picture next to text as opposed to underneath it, where sometimes you might miss it, for example.
So here, it's probably slightly larger text than I want to work with on this, but if I set that to the left and set the text to the left, and I've just set the picture to the right, hopefully, I'm not going to embarrass myself, let's live preview it. That's now got the picture to the right of it. So on that, I set the text to be on the left, and I told the image to be on the right.
Can I just ask, James, can you add a second picture under that? That was something I haven't managed to do. To set two pictures to the right underneath each other. I haven't been very successful.
I don't believe so, but the easiest way to answer that question is by trying it. I think this is going to go underneath.
Yeah, that's what I found. It just sits around it then.
Yeah, so it's dropped it below.
Yeah, that's fine.
So what you probably do in that stage is I'd be tempted, for instance, if you wanted a picture to go with mission statement and a picture to go with school vision and ethos, I'd split that into two text boxes.
Yeah, okay.
And then go text box, image, text box, image. And as I say, you are limited with your image options, I'll be honest, in as much as you've got a half-page image there, your other option is basically full size.
Yeah.
My workaround with that would be to add a gallery, which would add a smaller image.
And I think more than anything at this point, it's worth pointing out the orientation of pictures.
Yeah, again, the majority are going to be landscape. So again, I would have a bit of a think about the image, and I'd also think about the kind of image you're using. This is not too bad of an example, but I have seen on some of the sites when I've been checking them, I've had some pages that have just been an image with lots of text on it. Now that's fine when it's full width on a desktop display, but if that goes onto a mobile and squishes down, that's not going to be readable. So personally, I would avoid having images with all the text on it. The other reason for that is that if I'm partially sighted or blind, I might be having my screen read to me by the computer. A computer cannot read an image. So if that page is just an image and nothing else, then as a blind person or a partially sighted person, I'm not getting any information from it. Does that make sense?
Perfectly, thank you.
Okay. So and also,
is there a way of inserting portrait photographs without getting the crop on them?
I would have to double check that. I think there's various settings in here to against that. The option probably would be to drop it into a gallery, because then the gallery tends to open.
It'll pull it up where it's a full image, yeah.
Yeah.
But I still find that it appears on the screen slightly chopped off top and bottom. It's just a forewarning for people, really.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say about images as well, the system is good. If you upload a 5 megabyte file, it will resize it, but it's resizing it on the fly, so it is using processor time up. If you can, before you upload an image, get it resized to the correct size and the right resolution for being displayed on screen. Otherwise, we're going to end up with lots of huge files in the back of the website, taking up extra space that they don't need and potentially slowing the site down. If you need help resizing images, then we can figure out a way of doing that. I can help if necessary, but making them the right size for the website to start with, rather than getting the website to do it, is the better way to do it. And
is the recommendation 1200 by 900 pixels? Is that, am I right in thinking that?
That will work.
Ish.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the right kind of area. Yeah, with a DPI of either 72 or 96. I see 96 used quite a lot, but if anyone could show me the difference between a 72 and a 96 DPI file by eye, I'd be very, very impressed, because the difference is minute. But yeah, so just that kind of size with 96 or 72 DPI. Because what I see a lot of is people are taking it straight from their digital camera. It's 4 or 5 megabytes. It's designed to be printed high resolution. It's more than the website needs, so it just needs adjusting. There was another page type on here that I'll explain. You probably shouldn't have to use it. Redirect is literally that. It's not a real page. If someone comes to that URL, they will then bounce off to somewhere else. The example that we have on site is this one here. Google Translate opens up another website. It opens up the Google Translate. But to get it into the navigation, what I had to do was create a page for it. So right at the bottom of the list is Google Translate. So I go into that. So it's been set as a redirect here. And then you could just bounce it to another entry or a phone number or an email address. In this case, I want it to put a URL in of a different website. So I put the Google that in. So if anyone tries to go to that page from the navigation, it'll bounce to there. The only time that I would see you using it beyond there is if you've got a campaign that maybe you want to put a website URL on, but the real URL is very long. It's a child page of a child page of a child page. It would go on forever. What you might want to do is create a new top nav page, but hide it from the navigation. Give it a nice snappy title. So it's stmhull.org/campaign, and then get that to bounce and redirect to somewhere else. So it's a nice small URL you can use if it's going to be customer facing, but actually it takes you to the place that it really needs to be on the website that's got a really long URL. In this case, we're using it to divert to Google Translate. Well, I'm sort of talking about links and referrals. Again, when I've been looking through the sites, I've seen people putting them on in different ways. Personally, on a link, I wouldn't start display all this kind of content. If you are going to disrupt all the HTTPS and all that kind of thing, I personally think it looks unattractive in a page. It doesn't need to be there. The link itself will have that all in, so it'll work. So I personally, if I wanted that to show, I'd literally be putting www.translate.google.co.uk as the text. But better than that, I just go with normal text and say Google Translate. It just makes more sense to a user than putting all the long address in. That's going to be behind the URL. The customer just doesn't. The person viewing the website just doesn't need to see it.
Can we see that on the preview then, just to visualize the difference?
You want a main? Okay, I can find a page that does it. There's a submission page. I can throw an entry in. It doesn't matter.
That'll be my fault anyway. I'm still learning.
I didn't want to blame you, but the other thing is that Google reads what those lines are. So you used to see that a lot of people put click here. Well, Google's trying to figure out what page you're going to. So describing that page you're going to as click here really doesn't help it. So ideally, it'd be more of a description of the page. So we'll go into content and we'll go into here. Oops. You're not going to play properly for me, are you? So if I go into, I click like that, it's automatically, because it's a website address, it's automatically created a link. If I go into edit on that, I can just change the text. So who's that? Who's that? You see, I'm not changing the URL at the top. I'm literally just changing the stuff that's going to appear on screen. So on screen, that will now appear as that. Ideally, though, I wouldn't put the website address unless it's useful information for them to have. I'd put Google Translate. And because it's a third-party website, I'd probably tell it to open a new tab as well.
Yeah.
So you might have a little bit of text before that. Because people know now if it's a different colour or something happens when you go over it, but it's a link. So you don't have to say things like click here. Or if you do say click here, put click here to view our teachers page. So again, Google knows that the page it's linking to is a teacher's page. It's just good web practice. And again, it's probably slightly easier on the eye for the person viewing it. Make sense? I'll take quietness as being that's okay.
Yes, thank you.
I'll confuse everybody, one of the two.
Can I just ask, James, if the format of the calendar can look different?
The layout won't be able to. That
Okay.
It's that by us, but that does bring me on to the other entry types, which is good. So I've been obviously mainly focusing on pages at the moment, and then standard ones. But where are other things in here as well? So the information ones you probably won't ever touch. That's your footer ones. You'll notice in the pages list we do have news in here, and that's got an edit next to it. That's the same as clicking on that and seeing what news stories you've got. So all your news stories, so that's events, all your news stories live in there, and all your events live in there. Events are very simple. They have very little information on them. Literally a title, start date, end date, and a bit of information. And then you might want to categorize them. In this case, it's been assigned to being a school event. But if I got rid of that, I'd have a choice of how to tag that up. These ones probably won't apply because obviously a lot of these will have been copied across, but in a bit I'll show you how to edit those. You can add a new one straight from there anyway, and that will then connect all the ones together. But literally that is it for an event, so very little on them. On the news pages are very similar to standard pages. Again, clicking on here would start me off with a news page. What I should point out though is the way these work a little bit, so let's go into that. So again, you've got a title. This particular news page has got quite a long title and no introduction. And then again, ignore thumb image and featured. We're not using those particular tools on this occasion. And content works in exactly the same way. So again, you build it using your blocks. So once you've got a page mastered and you can do that, fundamentally you can do majority of the work you need to do on this website. What I did say about this one is that this particular one has got a large title. The title will appear on the main news page. For me, the way I think I'd have done this would be I'd have had something in the introduction and split that into two, because the introduction shows as well. I will change this back because I appreciate it's a live site. So that would go underneath the heading. So for me, I'd have probably made that heading as being statements from St. Cuthbert's, and then maybe put further to the Prime Minister's announcement in slightly smaller text down there. But that's a stylistic choice. That's just me wanting to make it a little bit smaller, because for me, it's probably a little bit too large. The majority of your titles are going to be relatively short. They're meant to be a brief explanation of what it is, not big, but that's an individual decision.
Is there any way of changing the background to those boxes? I know at St Mary's we've got like they stand out in blue. Is that a design thing?
I think that's a design thing. That'll be something we'd have to look at separately. That's done automatically. Just noticed something on this one, so I'm just going to change it. Missing a space. And just because I'm going to be tidy, I'm going to make sure the slug has got its space in as well. So that should have updated that. Yep, got our space. And then it's literally a case of clicking to read more. And that is on there too. So again, that page works exactly the same. Again, news pages again is like probably where you're going to use the feature to schedule and maybe expire, because news stories could have an expiry date on them, or it's embargoed. So actually it's on Monday that we want to release this information, but I've got a spare half an hour on Friday. I might as well create the page, set the post date, and I'll go live on that date. The other areas for me to show you was the categories. Again, categories you're not going to use. In fact, I think course leaders has been pulled across from St Mary's, as has banners. Events is that in the listings of the when we were putting events together, we had the option of choosing what the types were. If we wanted to delete any, I could go into that and choose to delete it. Or if I wanted to add a new one, then I can go in there, add a new event category. I think that's the only time you'll probably go into there. Assets we've already sort of semi-looked at. This is where your images and your files lived. You'll have seen me already using them when I was adding an image on the screen. So you can either upload your files by coming into here, or you can upload them as you're creating your page by choosing an image and then saying you want to upload files to use then. Various ways of finding them, filter it through by title, by the date it was uploaded, when it was last updated. You can click on them and choose to download it or just view it. That was a document, it's downloaded it for me, but if I did that one, I can view it, shows me what the picture is. So obviously I can, from there, I can delete it if we don't want it in the back end anymore, or edit it. And it's quite useful in as much as, let's find something that's more obvious for. So here we've got ones called one. I would ask people to think about their file names when they're uploading it. It's going to be a lot easier later on if you're trying to find a file if it's got a name that sort of bears relationship to its content. But if you want to change it on the fly, when it's already in here, you can go in to have a look at edit asset. And now I can change the file name, which I might leave by itself, or I might want to change the title of it. So then it doesn't appear as one here. It'll have a nice usable title. So you can go into that and edit from there. So if you have like uploaded something that maybe has got a title like that, no idea what that picture is, then you can edit it from there. And that, and again, if you can, my advice would be upload files to the file section and images to the image section. It just means it's going to be a lot quicker for you to find things going forward. If you're trying to find a file and your automatically thought is to go there and you do a search for it, if it's in the images section, you won't find it. So you might have to, if you can't find a file, you might need to go in there and check it as well, just in case it's been put in the wrong place. That's it for assets. Users, as editors, you can add users, change your own details. You can see everybody who's got permission in this site. You're all listed as site editors, which is the way I've been going in today. So everything you've seen today is exactly as you'll see it. I think if you need to add users and whatever, we'll cover that separately rather than going into details today. Freeform Pro, you only have one real form on here to my knowledge, which if I go into forms is your contact form. Submissions will be all contacts through that. So at the moment, there's only one in there, I think, if I go to contact form. Yep. So yesterday, someone called Ben Gibson, working for a company called Bluestorm, he was just testing the site, so he'll have gone into that. If I click on that, I can go in and see the message he's left me. Hopefully someone replied to Ben to say everything was working. And so you can see all your details in there. So that's just in Freeform Pro and submissions. And that'll then list down there. You can choose it by date as well. So if you need to go in and action them, all the contacts will come in that way. You can edit the forms through here as well if you really need to. Again, it might be that's something I talked you through separately. This also is where it tells me who's getting the emails. So in this case, the notify section is telling me that when this form is sent, it's going to admin@sdmhole.org. You can add more than one person in there. So if you do want to add other people in, it's just an extra line for extra email addresses. And realistically, that's it. You will find frustrations. There will be bits of things that you can't edit and control. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is to make it slightly easier for you to use. The other one is to make sure that there's consistency. The problem with having multiple editors is we'll all work in slightly different ways. But obviously, from a person coming to the website, they want to see it being consistent. So my suggestion is you get your own set of rules between you. How are you going to lay things out? Are you going to have breaks quite often? I personally don't like using lots and lots of text without breaking it up. Typically, people look at a website page, and if it's got lots of text on it, they might skip things. So I tend to go two paragraphs, then put a subheading in, another couple of paragraphs, subheading. It just breaks it down, doesn't make it look as bulky. And it also means that if people want to skip sections, the subheadings will help them to decide where to go to. That'll help them, because people don't necessarily read a website the way you would a book. They don't read from the top to the bottom. They'll scan around. But again, you'll have your own rules in place for that, how you use images, how you use titles. Again, if you're going to use different heading sizes, my suggestion would be get a set of rules together for that, because otherwise you've got one person using one heading size, another using another, and the pages just won't look like they relate to each other. So that's the rules you might want to consider and talk and put in place. I've already talked about the way of using images and being careful with them. Anything I haven't covered, Naomi?
I don't think so. No, I've made notes and I think we've talked about everything. I think if you just go back into the actual site, what I've found with colleagues as they become accustomed to the new site is just getting them to use the search facility. So you've got a little magnifying glass at the top right hand. It's everybody's saviour. If they're looking for term dates, if they're looking for, usually always term dates, but it's very much Google-like, isn't it? Type what you're thinking there and it'll take you to your page. I've just found it to be really, really invaluable in directing people around, because you won't remember the structure of the website offhand when somebody arrives at the side of your desk.
That's true of the entries page as well.
Yeah.
So if I want to find the old pages that say term dates on it, those 3 pages now are the ones I need to look at. So if I'm trying to replace something or there's some wrong information, the teacher's left maybe, then you want to find out old pages they're referenced on and go in and edit them, then you can use the search tool in the back as well.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if this sounds really dim, but I'm still a bit lost with the whole idea of the Google Translate high-level option. Okay.
We wanted the option just to be able to click on something up here and go to Google Translate, so it takes you off-site. So all that is doing is creating a fake page that doesn't really exist. And as soon as anyone goes to that fake page, they're straight away bounced to Google Translate. So it doesn't really exist as a page. It does in the back, because that's where I have to have it. So it's there, but it's not a real page. So when I click into it, it's not showing as a page type on the right hand side when it comes. It's showing as a redirect. It's literally taking somebody from that page and redirecting them to somewhere else. The chances of you using that is very, very slim. It's just a bounce from one place to another.
But by it being on the high level menu option, the temptation is for, I guess, visitors to the site to click on it. What does it offer them?
And that's the point.
Yeah.
My understanding is you've got quite a number of parents that haven't necessarily have English as their main or first language, and therefore the reason we've got it up there is that they can go onto Google Translate and it will translate the website for them.
Right. Okay.
So we wanted it to be at top level nav position. I could have put it anywhere. I could have assigned it as a part of About Us. The functionality of it would have worked in the same way. That was just a decision about where we wanted it to appear. And yes, if English isn't your first language and you want to change it to whatever I've got at the moment, then you're going to want to find that quickly. You don't want it to be buried under sub-navs that you can't read. So that's the reason it's there.
Okay.
That's a stylistic decision or a policy decision. Did that explain that to you, or is that okay?
Yeah, that's good. I think clearly on the version of the website I had opportunity to look at, it didn't work like how I've just seen it visually. So
no, there's a few. You'll have been looking at the development site. There's a few things you can't do until it's put live. This has only just gone live. So yeah, things like maps and whatever don't work quite correctly when we're setting it up, because we have to associate them with an account, which you can only do when you're live. So yeah, there'll be things that you'll notice fractionally different. Maybe things that were wrong before should hopefully be right. There will be things that you'll spot. That's unfortunately the nature of the beast. But with live, obviously, we can change things quickly. So they can just be flagged up to Naomi and then from Naomi to me. But yeah, I think from my point of view, I learn best by going in and playing around. So I think probably the best tool is the one that Naomi mentioned, not me, which is the live preview. So even if you go into an existing page, throw it into live preview, and then play around with changing things. Just don't hit the save button.
For the most part, my routine is into page. Obviously, I don't even really use the details page that often. Straight to content, change, amend, add, save, preview and save, and that's very much the routine of the day-to-day management of the website, I would say.
If I show you, let's have a look. At the moment, this has got a big introduction section. For me, that's not to say, for me, that's highlighting too much text. So I'm doing this on preview. Close live preview, so I can get one thing you can't do on live preview is switch from details to content. So we're going to the content now. Add a text box above that and put that content in. Delete the extra gap there. Live preview that. It's made that text a little bit smaller. So you've got an intro section there, which again is more dominant, so your headline information, but isn't therefore making everything quite as big and in your face. So personally, that's the way I'd use an introduction versus the text. Actually, it's there. Whereas the way we had it before.
And that's where the content, once it's established, is there to be, you know, amended. We had to get to a point where we could publish. And then once you've got a little bit more control over it, you'll be able to make the changes you want to make.
And some of this comes down to personal judgment and style as well. And obviously, I've got ingrained into me certain ways of working. You might disagree with that, which is fine. So that's what I mean by having your own set of rules that you all adhere to.
I find the advice really helpful, and even I haven't had that advice to date, so it'll change my thinking as well.
Now, it all comes down to one. I keep referring to Google being happy. Fundamentally, Google's happy if the users are happy. Everything I do is sounding like I'm going to a Bryan Adams song. Everything I do is for the user experience. That's why I say I use subheadings just to break things up a little bit. Yeah. I drop images maybe halfway through a big block of text again, so it just doesn't look so heavy. People make judgments very quickly on web pages, literally within a second or two of being on a page. They'll judge whether they're going to read it or not. So the way it's laid out is crucially important. Equally, so is probably having those related pages at the bottom, because again, you've spent a lot of time getting these people to this page. Do you just want them to disappear because they don't know where to go next? No,
indeed. And we were very much there with our old St Mary's website. It had so much information. It had every single member of every department, every curriculum, and it was all in text. So one insistence we did was actually drop a lot of information into PDFs that doesn't need to be on the site. That they're attachments. You know, if you've got big curriculum documents, they don't need dropping into the actual page. They just need to be there. So you're conforming with expectations in terms of content, but B, leaving them in a format which doesn't spoil the aesthetics of the website. Yeah,
give people a choice, but at the same time direct them, because there can be too much choice. The problem with the website is we think, oh, we can have as many pages as we want. Right, simultaneously, yeah, technically you can, but no, you shouldn't have, because people just get lost. Too much choice can be a bad thing. If people get confused using the site, don't know where to go, can't find the information they want, the search tool obviously is helpful, but you want to make the user experience as simple and straightforward as possible. They get to the information they want as quick as possible, and then they're led to the next piece that might be of use to them. And then they'll keep coming back and they'll use it as a valuable resource. If they look at it and go, wow, too much detail information on there, they'll leave without reading it, and they possibly will never come back again.
Indeed.
Can I just ask what support is available for when we do try and play with this ourselves? What's our point of?
Leave it completely alone, and it's your problem. No, I'm on hand as well, so obviously.
I was going to say I'm in position, and even more so. I should have a slightly clearer head from September when I'm not working in the library at St Mary's, so I'll have one job instead of two. So always come to me at the first port of call. If you can't, then James is there to help me too. So I think that's going to be quite a really useful structure to go through, but I should be able to be more dedicated to you from September onwards. And I had to, James and his colleagues were the people I had to go to, because it was just me when we started off. So there's lots of layers of support there for you. And I don't think any question is ever a daft one. I've asked plenty of daft questions to the Blue Storm team. And I had gone to sleep and forgotten things from this this content, so actually having a recording of it's going to be brilliant.
It's difficult. Bear in mind, I deal with this kind of thing on a daily basis. So therefore, me flying around it is second nature. It's like jumping in and driving a car. If you weren't going to drive a car for a year, you'd be a bit rusty starting again. And that's probably where you guys are going to be, because you're probably not going to be doing this every day or even every week. So there are going to be times when you have questions, or it takes you a little bit more to figure it out or whatever. So I wouldn't worry about that.
And especially for the schools whose sites are still in development as well. Some people will be at the point where they can leap in now, and another few emerging within the next week. And then, of course, the last trench of what we've got going on.
Yeah. So for me, that's everything covered. So if there's any other questions.
Sorry, Naomi, you kind of touched on it. Have we got proposed published dates for the ones that have not gone live yet?
Which school? I can't remember who belongs where.
St Mary Queen of Martyrs. Have we got like a date to work to on this?
I was waiting on a response of your content. I sent out an email about 2 weeks ago asking for some content, but I haven't had anything for that at the moment. So at the moment, I'm just using that to populate from the old site. So if you've got anything you want to go in new, or I can set it from your old site and then you can tinker with it afterwards. We can quite easily get it to go live. But at the moment, it's been very different in terms of different people's experiences. Some people have let me go for it and just swap things across and amend as we go along. Others have wanted to actually create that new content, so it's slightly different in pace. It can be done very quickly, basically, depending on which way, but I was just waiting on a response for that.
That's fine. Well, sorry about that. We'll maybe be in touch. Via email, we can maybe say either swap it all across for now and we go from there, or maybe we'll decide.
To be honest, at the point of time that we're at, and obviously not wanting to drag this out too long with Bluestorm, that's where we need to go, because now we are obviously quite empowered to make the changes once the site's alive anyway. So getting them out there is going to be more important with some sensible content than worrying too much about what we can and can't amend, because everything can be done very quickly. I've uploaded all of the home learning from next week for St Charles's website in 5 minutes this morning, so it's very fluid once we get going.
Yeah, I think the
ambition is that we finish this term with the sites live, so that from the new academic year you've basically got a clean slate to put your long-term plans in, your documents and stuff like that, and we can play with them as we go along.
Thank you.
Have you got all the content that you need for St Richard's, Naomi?
No, not at the moment. Nothing.
Right. Okay.
So what I have got is whatever's out there in the public on the website. So I'll push an email out when we finish today.
Okay.
Just with some of the things that you might want to give me that you've got that are even fresher than on your current websites.
Okay.
Is that all right? We'll revisit that later on.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's it. Oh.
Thank you for your time, James. As I said to people who are on the call, I did this last year, and in about 48 hours was asking for some help. Please do ask me. I'll do what I can, and if I can't, James has been ever so helpful.
Well, thank you all very much for your time, and good luck.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.